Sportsnet Dodgers brought to you by Mercury Insurance. I'm John Hartung alongside Nomar Garcia-Parr, Oral Hershiser. They're laughing at me because they know I was not fine there in the ninth inning. The Dodgers begin this NLCS with a heart-stopping win in Game 1. I got to endure more of these the rest of the way. Are you kidding me? But we saw tonight maybe the strangest play we've ever seen in a playoff game that cost the Dodgers some runs, but they persevered. Freddie Freeman hits a home run. Blake Snell faces the minimum over 8 innings, retires the last 17 batters. But Dave Roberts needed to go to the bullpen to get the final 3 outs. Roki didn't have it like we've seen so often since he came back off the IL, Nomar. But Blake Trinan to the rescue, gets out of a bases-loaded jam to save the day, and I can breathe.
Hey, well, yeah, I want to go get one of those Aura rings to put so we can follow you on, see how it just spikes and everything goes up and down. But listen, all of us were feeling that way, exactly as Dodger fans, edge of our seat. But listen, Blake Snell, first and foremost, unbelievable. Outstanding performance by Blake Snell. He was on point. Every pitch, he was on point. He was poised. He was relaxed. His execution was off the charts. Definitely a historic start in the postseason for Blake Snell, what the Dodgers needed. And I tell you what, for the offense, obviously Freddie Freeman gets that home run, but they had some opportunities that were just unlucky. I mean, who writes up an 8-6-2 double play? You don't see that too often where the ball is hit over 400 feet and it ends up being a double play. You don't see that. There were guys in scoring position. You had some lineouts or hard hits. They were unlucky, but at the same time, the rest of the bullpen, I'll tell you what, Blake Trinan coming through. Hey, we can breathe now, but there were some really good things that I'm excited about carrying over for the next game.
I mean, there are so many headlines, and you have to start with Blake Snell as far as the headlines. And then you got to go with Freddie Freeman busting out with his home run. And then you think about the ninth inning with the Dodgers. You think about the insurance run being scored by a walk, and then the Dodgers getting to a point where a walk or a hit batter would actually tie the game. So it was nail-biting time for sure. But I'm going to back you up, Nomar, with Blake Snell. A great job, because he knew he just needed to get one out, and he never threw pitches really where he's like, oh, I'm going to make sure I throw a strike to this guy. He was in a place where it's like, I'm going to continue to throw my out pitches. Yeah, a few of his sweepers were kind of hung and a little bit of strike, but other than those 2 pitches, he made out pitches the whole way and finally got an out at the end.
He was the first pitcher to face the minimum through 8 innings in a playoff game since Don Larson's perfect game back in the 1950s. That's how dominant Blake Snell was tonight. The man catching him in this game, Will Smith, is standing by in Milwaukee with Kirsten Watson.
Will, obviously how this game ended, it was a little stressful on the back end with the Brewers finding a way to make some traffic. But how you, Mark Pryor, how you guys were able just to settle the bullpen down, navigate through them. What were you seeing from those guys?
Yeah, I thought, Roki kind of fell behind. They got some good hits, a walk, whatever. Good swing from Bowers. He got 2 big outs for us. Those are 2 tough outs. We needed them. Never gave in. And then Blake, coming in, not giving into Contreras. I know he drew a walk. We got a base open there. And getting that last punch, it was huge.
What was the conversation before that last strikeout?
Yeah, I mean, it was just keeping him calm. It's just, being me. We got a great relationship. We've been in these stressful situations before. Just being there for him, keeping him confident, and getting the job done. As
much as the back end of this game, that story was the bullpen. This entire game, the story was Blake Snell, how he was able to get through 8 shutout innings. What made him so special tonight?
Yeah, that was dominant. That's as good as you see someone throw a game. It was impressive. Just glad he's on our side. But, he was just making pitches. He wasn't giving in. His changeup was really good tonight. His curveball punching guys away. He just kind of had them just really off balance and not knowing what's coming.
He talks about wanting to be in these big moments.
The pitching staff was outstanding. By pitching staff, I mean Blake Snell for 8 innings. And then in the 9th inning, Earl, he hands it off to Roki Sasaki, who's been absolutely lights out himself in a relief role. Tonight just wasn't his night. He was battling command issues before Blake Snell was able to get out of that mess.
Yeah, you get the insurance run, and you feel very confident having Roki out there, and he gets a couple of quick outs, but all of a sudden, he loses the release point a little bit, and all of a sudden, when you see him throw a ball, that ball is so borderline right there. He could have easily got the call, but this is where you start to think he hasn't had any difficulties as the closer yet. How's he going to respond to the difficulties? Well, right here in a 3-2 pitch, a fastball low and away, probably the only pitch of his whole arsenal that this guy could get to, but he did, and you got to tip your hat. And now you got to get back in the strike zone, but Dave Roberts is going to get to a point where he says, Roki, you're not the guy for this job. You're going to give up the sac fly, and we're going to go to Blake Trinan. And when Blake comes in, He's a little erratic, but he's at a point where he only needs one out. And with Blake, I think that it was really good that he didn't give in to any hitter and he continued to go with his out pitches.
You know, Blake trying to really coming through. I know we've seen the last one. We see some of his pitches just not quite as sharp and kind of maybe spinning and being over the plate. But there, he knew he had an open base going out there. Listen, walking, I'm not going to give in against a really good hitter, but now he really has to buckle down here with the bases loaded, can't give a free pass, and then ends up climbing the ladder. And I think what set that pitch up, though, were his other pitches, the quality pitches to get him to chase. But closing out the game right there, they got the job done. They can breathe easy as well. I think hopefully Roki also learned from this as well, where, you know, can't give any free passes there when you got a 2-run lead. I think he knows that. You know, got squeezed there on that one call. The other thing, though, too, I was just curious why they weren't really playing more no doubles with that ball hit over your head. That's one of the things you go, because you can't allow the tie and run to get in a scoring position. So you're thinking about that from the outfield as well. But nonetheless, it was really, Blake Snell was just incredible. It was really his game.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Blake Snell, let's take a look at his numbers from tonight in Game 1 of this National League Championship Series. The 8 innings, he allowed just one base hit. After that base hit, he retired the final 17 hitters he faced. There were no other base runners. He struck out 10, and he wiped out that base hit on a caught stealing. So he faces the minimum through his 8 brilliant innings. And Nomar, I'll begin with you on Blake Snell. And we've talked about it on the pregame show about this is why the Dodgers wanted him. And it's also why Blake Snell wanted to pitch for the Dodgers, to pitch in big games like this, and he's proven once again to be more than up to the challenge.
It's the preparation. I know he was getting interviewed, and he goes to his card in the back a little bit, says of a cheat sheet to know how he wants to execute. He's sitting down in between innings, looking at some of the information, but he's not only just looking at information, but he's adjusting to the information as the game goes on. And he was just dominant. I mean, there wasn't a pitch you could sit on if you're the Brewers, any hitter, because there were times he was throwing 6 changeups in a row because he knew that was the pitch to go. He was recognizing maybe the body language. He was recognizing what was going on. He was recognizing the situation at that moment. So he knew what pitch he wanted to go in those situations, and he was able to execute. Even if he may have missed, he knew the next pitch he was going to go throw after that. It was just a brilliant, brilliant performance to watch, and he was the reason they won today.
There's different tools that pitchers bring to the mound, and some of them bring them all, and some of them bring just a few, but he brings them all. He brings them all as far as studying and knowing the game. He brings them all as far as comprehending what he wants to do and then retaining the information. And then what he brings is good mechanics now. This is not typical Blake Snell that we know that has won a couple of Cy Youngs. He didn't have any walks. He normally is like a full pack that Earl Weaver would call you by setting the table with a bunch of walks, but then having great stuff to get out of it. He's fantastic right now with the mechanics, the repeatability of his body, the preparation, the retaining it, applying it, reading the situations. Everything that he's doing is like a video game pitcher right now.
Well, oftentimes he'd come out maybe in the 5th or 6th inning because of those walks that would get his pitch count up there. So they end up taking him out or looking at that. But no, without those walks, he was really efficient today. Just incredible. I mean, retiring 17 batters in a row after that base hit. I mean, incredible.
The last 3 postseason outings, he's gone 1 walk, 4 walks, no walks. And he is locked in. Yeah. This is a guy who can carry us to the World Series.
This was a night where I felt like the Dodgers offense had so many opportunities to put some crooked numbers on the board in that 4th inning. They have bases loaded, 1 out. Max Muncy thinks he's hit a grand slam. The ball bounces out of a glove. Needless to say, that turned into a double play. The next inning, they have 2 runners on. Mookie Betts hits it really hard, but that turns into a double play. But then Freddie Freeman in the 6th inning gets the Dodgers on the board with a home run.
Yeah, and he fooled us with the swing. And when he hit it, he didn't like, oh, I've got this for sure. The arc of the ball leaving the bat is like, will it make it, will it not? Freddie's reaction is like, maybe I hit it pretty solid. He's kind of looking at it like, I better jog. I don't know. It's either an out or a home run. And it carries just far enough, high enough, hard enough, some backspin. A later at bat after the home run, his next at bat, he hit a ball probably just as hard, but it had topspin. ended up with a double. But this swing, it's really sweet, Nomar. You are the guy that can break down a swing in a heartbeat.
This one I thought was going to go out the way he hit it, but I think he got a little bit more top spin on this one, which actually kept this one in the ballpark and ended up hitting it off the wall. But just a nice swing, staying inside that ball, getting the barrel out there to pull it down the right field line. You know, this game from an offensive side, I know they were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. They had some opportunities, obviously, but I would tell these guys, stay right there because it's going to change. They were very unlucky. You know, you look in that fourth inning. That fourth inning, everybody did their job in that fourth inning. And you got a leadoff walk over there by Teoscar Hernandez. Freddie Freeman drove the ball the other way, and it was an unbelievable catch by the left fielder. You tip your hat. And then after that, you got a single by Will Smith, and then you got Tommy Edman with a single as well. And Max Muncy getting the job done, hitting a deep fly ball out there in center field. And then they end up getting a double play. And then the following inning, you get guys in scoring position. Mookie Betts hits a rocket, a line drive, one hopper to the second baseman that they end up turning into double play. But overall, when I look at this offense, they only struck out 4 times. This wasn't a swing and miss day for this offense. I mean, they were putting the ball in play. They had some hard outs. They had some line drives. I would tell them, listen, guys, stay right here because they're going to fall. They're going to work out in our favor, and we're going to continue to create opportunities that they can capitalize on. Yeah, 1 for 10, you don't like that number, but when you really dissect it in there, you know, it could be a whole lot different, some of those numbers when, especially that ball in center field that Muncy hit.
In the second inning, Dave Roberts had the in-game interview, and we hadn't scored yet, hadn't even gotten a hit, and there's like, how are you going to get this going? Well, he goes, I like the at-bats, I like the approaches, and you know what? He was right, and they continued, and they didn't get a lot of runs, but like Nomar said, the situations, the hitting, the velocity off the bat, the walks, the long fly balls, they were all the appropriate approaches.
And speaking of situation, hey, the sack bunt ended up paying off, and you know, you ended up scoring that inning, so that was huge. So got to execute, do some little things, and you keep doing that. You know what? They're going to score.
Well, and speaking of that 9th inning, Nomar, let's talk about that 9th inning. The Dodgers pushing across what turned into be the difference in the game with the 1 run, but they did it with the little things, a walk and a single, and then that sacrifice bunt by Andy Pajes, of all people, setting it up.
Great job, Max Muncy, leading off the inning, find a way to get on base, and he does. He gets that walk, and then nice hit by Kike going the other way, getting a single, and Andy Pajes, what a bunt. Not easy when a guy's throwing 100 miles an hour with some movement, and he ends up getting that bunt down perfectly, and then, yeah, you can intentionally walk Mookie Betts, and then, Shohei Ohtani to get to Mookie Betts, and he gets the walk. Good at-bat right there. So just all around, great job to get that insurance run, and obviously it was huge.
The maturity of Kike to fail at the bunt with a couple of kind of bad attempts, and then I'll have an 0-2 count, and not get angry with himself and not overswing, but say, I'm going to put this ball in play, and he figured out a way to flick that ball to right field. That's the maturity of this guy now. He's not only a guy that's Mr. October, but there's some maturity to his approach.
All right, so the Dodgers win Game 1 by the final of 2-1. The NLCS resumes tomorrow with Game 2.